let's see if this is working. All right. I'm going to attempt to stream live on TikTok at the same time. It's taking my picture. Okay. We're not going to do that.
We follow.
We're not. Okay. Disregard the TikTok. Alrighty. So I'm going to give it a couple of minutes and see if anyone joins. Let me ensure that we are visible. There we are. It looks like it is working. Okie dokie. That's good news. And then that way I can see if there are any comments, hopefully. All right, we're just going to wait a couple of minutes and then we'll go ahead and get started. And if you are late, you can just rewatch from the beginning, but we'll just give it a minute. I'm gonna take this down here so it's not buzzing in y'all's ear. So I hope everybody's been doing well. When you come in, let me know where you are from. I would love to know where everybody is joining from. And we will talk about conflict and how that relates to the reflection of our inner masculine. Joining from. Okay. Looks like the mic's working just fine. Oh, we do have somebody here. Awesome. Thank you for joining. Let's see if I can tell. I am still learning how to do this, y'all. You would think that after a few times that I would already understand how to do this. But I'm having a hard time finding you in the chat, so hang on a second. Where is it? Oh, I had it before and now I can't find it. Okay, give me just a second. Give me just a second and I'm gonna find you. Oh, there you are. Hi, Melissa and Karen. Thank you for being here. I had you, all right. I think I got it now. I'm going to master this at some point. I have to get used to the delay though. There's like a 30-second, not maybe that long, no, like 5-second delay or something between what I'm actually saying and what's popping up on YouTube. So it is kind of strange to see me with a delay. Thank you for being here, you guys. I appreciate it so much. All right, so I think, let's see, let me figure out the best way to do this. Give me just a sec. That might not be it. Whoops. There we go. All right, much better. Okay. All right, so I think I'm gonna start. I'm assuming you guys have read the blog, but I think I'm going to start by reading that. And and then we'll go into the different aspects of it. It's just kind of a refresher to read through it, and I feel like there's something about saying it out loud that is important too. Yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. This is feels very personal all of a sudden. So I've never read this out loud, and I don't usually read my own stuff out loud. Not, it's different when it's channeled. Conflict. It seems to permeate every area of my life. The carefully honed balance and peace have been overtaken by conflict, uncertainty, scarcity, and a line of fear running underneath each of those. This wasn't me 3 weeks ago. I'd prefer to place responsibility for this change on something external, because then once that situation resolves, so does the conflict, right? That would be nice and easy, and I laugh even writing that scenario. I know that's not how this works. I know the external situation is only a mirror reflecting back internal beliefs, which are so deep and so subtle that it takes a very stressful, scary event to trigger them out of the darkness. And in this case, it was someone else's response to that event and the ongoing circumstances around it that ultimately cracked open my carefully cultivated peace. There I go again. It is sublimely worded, yet that last sentence puts the responsibility and therefore the power squarely on that external experience. Yes, I am an empath, and that certainly weighs into the dynamic I am describing. However, it is not black and white, this or that. To relegate this to simple duality is to negate the importance of its layers, its intricacies. For ultimately, the conflict permeated my life because of my response. It wasn't immediate. It didn't begin with an abrupt jump into that energy. It began with my actions to stand up for myself. It began with brief statements made defensively. They began to link together, energetically forming a resonance with conflict, climaxing with an angry, aggressive reaction which locked in the frequency of victimhood, of doubt, of lack, and fear. The energetic space I nurtured and protected was overtaken with these energies. There I go again. Let's restate this. I reacted, made choices, gave my power away. Those are what chipped away at my peace, my balance, my sovereignty. By engaging in the conflict energy, I handed all of those over to someone else. The other person, of course, was not consciously aware of this, but certainly they felt empowerment in the exchange, because relinquishing those energies is a transfer of personal abundance. This is the downward spiral of conflict. Once engaged with, once that resonance and coherence of energies is obtained, the frequency of it seeps throughout your experience. The confirmation of this repercussion came through a statement. We cannot find solutions without conflict. Made by another to me, this statement shook me to my core. That it was even in my field of reality should have been a red flag for where my energy was vibrating, although that realization hit many days later. The moment of that statement sparked reflection whose results I share upon these pages. Conflict. Can we reach solutions to problems without it? Yes, we can. Conflict differs from contrast. It differs from discord and disagreement. Conflict implies a fight against something or someone. I hear some of you out there saying I'm mincing words. You're right, I am. Because this is a subtlety that is incredibly important, especially now. Especially now. We must get clear on what our energetic frequencies are aligning to. To engage in conflict in the fight is to immediately give our power away. To engage in conflict is to embrace the belief the basis of it has the ability to define our reality. Strength and integrity are not in the fight. They are in the choice to stand in the face of conflict and choose equanimity, to choose our truth so powerfully that there is nothing to defend. There is nothing to battle. There is nothing to argue. There is only truth. Don't take that as my truth is better than your truth type of declaration. No, this truth is wrapped around your sovereignty. This truth is grounded in love, and it does not judge. It does not blame. It does not seek to alter another's truth, period. The unfolding of this led me even deeper into my relationship with the masculine. My history with masculine energies is scarred by old wounds, abuses, betrayals, subjugation. This is fact. The defensiveness and sharpness of my reaction when faced with disrespect, diminutive generalities, and misogyny show me clearly that those hurts are still restricting my relationship with the masculine. If I fall back on them to determine how I interact with the masculine going forward, they still hold power over me. A reclamation of self-sovereignty never begins with, but they hurt me. And in this recognition, I suddenly see that this is represented throughout the collective conflict. The rising of the divine feminine is to take back her power, therefore putting the divine masculine in his place, right? No. Battering, demeaning, blaming, and shaming the masculine, regardless of who it comes from and who it is aimed towards, is a repeat of the same behavior we are supposedly fighting. Can we see how it is the fight, the conflict, that is not leading us to solution, but recycling and amplifying the problem? To go deeper once again, this mirroring is not only external, it never is. The reaction we have to the masculine externally is the same reaction we have to our own divine masculine energies. Why are we fighting with him, demonizing him, shaming him? Wasn't he there with us all along? Didn't he experience the same traumas, wounds, abuses, betrayals? Why do we continue to punish him for infractions for which he was not responsible? In our quest for balance, we cannot embrace the conflict and cover it with illusions of empowerment and righteousness. These are the same energies which were utilized to suppress the feminine. She will not evolve into the divine feminine through those same pathways. The healthy masculine is steadfast, protective, compassionate, takes inspired action, holds space for expression, creates structure and stability, is a just leader, plans and repairs. Embodiment of all those traits is necessary for any of us to be a balanced human. To ignore these, and even worse, to squash them through a belief system which states the masculine is synonymous with violence, unfairness, punishment, destruction, manipulation, dishonesty, defensiveness, and control, is to castrate the divine masculine within ourselves. A balanced human has an equal ebb and flow of divine feminine and divine masculine energies. To hold on to thought and behavior patterns born from trauma and distrust is to ensure we continue to walk in conflict against each other. Walking in peace only comes when our own divine masculine and divine feminine stride hand in hand, shoulder to shoulder. Through the expression of these words, I feel the conflict within disintegrating. And with its dissolution, the peace returns, the magic in the combination of the feminine expression and the masculine assertiveness is a balm and a bridge to rebalancing and reclaiming me. May the frequencies of this medicine open a similar shift within all of us. It was harder for me to read out loud than I thought it was going to be. So a lot of a lot of reflection that came through that. Hey Karen, we have two Karens, yay. A lot of reflection came was expressed in that blog, and then even since then there's been quite a bit of it for me, and my guides were so intent that I talk about this, that I share the words in the blog, but also talk about what I've learned through it and what I've discovered and has been revealed. And I have been so nervous to talk about this because it is uncomfortable for me in that it talks about some things that I'm still working through myself and that I see every day in the collective, that I know on a deep, energetic, intuitive level that the collective is wrestling with, speaking of conflict, but really struggling with. And so much of it I don't think is recognized even. So as much as I didn't want to talk about this, here I am. It is really important, and that's why I'm here. It is really important because if we're going to get to a point of being balanced humans so that we can move forward into new earth, we have to be able to address these things within ourselves. It's going to require us to be radically honest with ourselves, which was something that came through not too long ago too. So, one of the first things I wanted to talk about was just recognizing conflict energy. And I'm going to say this, and I'm seeing Melissa's comment. Yeah, it really knocked me back for me to, when the recognition came through. Yeah, that perspective shift was huge, So recognizing conflict energy, I think, is really important for us to start with, because conflict has, just as I started the blog, I almost changed it, interestingly, because by the time I went to write it, well, not when I originally wrote it in my journal, but when I went to share it, which was only like a day or two later, because my guides were so insistent that no, it had to be out there. I didn't resonate with the first line of conflict permeating every area of my life. But I left it, one, because it was how I was feeling at the moment, and part of the importance and I think some of the understanding that comes through those reflections is that starting point, and going from that to where peace comes back in. So why am I talking about this? Because there's conflict, and I think we're all aware of this, but it may even be more subtle than we recognize, because we've become rather dulled to it. We've gotten used to it. We've become conditioned to conflict and separation. They're really intricately linked to that being part of our everyday life. We read it every day in the media. I'm kind of skipping around in my notes here, but so recognizing that energy, a good example of that is seeing in social media, right? There's drama everywhere. If you look at even just like regular news broadcasts, the evening news, right? I mean, even probably 6 or 7 years ago, before lockdowns and all that, I don't want to say the word because I don't want this to get any sort of blocks against me. So anyway, before COVID, there wasn't quite as much of a dramatic approach to newscasting as there is now. Like, I haven't watched the news in a long time. When I was at my parents' house, they watched the news, and I was flabbergasted at how dramatic newscasting has become. And it feeds and amplifies the energy of conflict, because so many of the stories that are being told and recreated then energetically are around conflicts. And certainly I'm not going to go into arguing the importance of awareness of what's going on, but I think we've become a little dulled to understanding and recognizing conflict. And it's very important. From that, it's like our baseline digestibility for conflict has been elevated so high over the last 6 or 7 years that we are ingesting more and more and exposing ourselves to more and more energies of conflict, and not even recognizing that that's what it is. So I think recognizing conflict is really important for us, first of all, and allowing ourselves to really feel into the energy and what that feels like. You can go from an experience that you can absolutely say, okay, this is the energy of conflict, but then trace it back a little bit if you're not sure where it started from, like the root of it. Trace it back until you start recognizing like that sense of conflict within your physical body and sensing the energy of it. That's going to be really important as we progress in our ascension. And honestly, we're going to continue to see an escalation of conflict, and for us to be really, really discerning about where we're placing our energy and understanding the underlying motivations of things, having this skill set is going to be especially important. Okay, that was just channeled. That was not something I had heard before. So now I understand why we're here. Okay. As you guys know, the channeling kind of interweaves with me talking. So it's sometimes I can't, there's no separation in the two. So that was definitely a channeled message. So having awareness of conflict in our around us that we are exposed to is going to be really important, so we can be very discerning as we move forward in understanding what those underlying motivations are, because as things continue to unfold, and we're going to see a lot of that in the next 6 months in particular, 6 months to a year and a half, but I think the next 6 months might be saying until February of next year may be the most challenging because of the adjustment period. So that's why we're doing this now, so that we can begin to recognize the energy of conflict. Okay. All right. So let's talk about being an empath. All of us here are sensitive, right? And if anyone who watches this afterwards, more than likely you're sensitive to energy too. And that's why you're here, right? Because you are on your own journey of growth and expansion and ascension. As empaths, it can be especially challenging because there is, again, that kind of interweaving of energies of, we need to be very discerning about when we are feeling the energy of conflict, and then we are engaging in it from that point. But when we're feeling the energy of conflict and we're wanting to engage, are we wanting to engage from our center, or are we engaging because we're feeling the energy of the external conflict, right? So does that make sense? I'm going to pause here for a second because that feels like a really important point if you guys have any questions about that. Okay, Karen said say it again. What did I say? So being an empath and being sensitive to energy, it's important for us to learn. It really goes back to making sure that if you're sensing an energy of conflict, understanding what the signals are that tell you this is actually an external energy that you're feeling, or that you are feeling pushed almost to engage in the conflict from something internal. Here's the other part of this. It's never really one or the other, which is what I said in the blog. It's not black and white. It's not this or that. It will help you as an empath to be able to identify this frequency of an energy of conflict I'm feeling within me about this situation or within this situation is not mine. I am feeling this from someone else because I'm getting the physical sensations. whatever key signals you get from your body and from your intuition that say, hey, this isn't mine. Really listening to those. Ultimately, though, the point is, if you're in, yes, that not being one or the other. Yeah, it's let's see how to talk about this. Give me just a second, because I kind of lost it there. Okay, so it's neither one or the other. So it's if we're feeling that, whether we're taking it on from the other person or from the external situation, if we're choosing to engage in it, right, it might as well be ours. Okay, so it is really important to hone in on understanding what's yours and what is not yours. That could become increasingly not challenging, but a skill set that needs to be revisited as you expand your sensitivity level. In addition, it's something that, well, the flip side of this is recognizing that you're always responsible for your response, regardless of what you are responding to. You're always responsible for your response, right? And that was the part in the blog too, where ultimately the conflict permeated my life because of my response. Because in that situation, whether it was coming from me, right, or it was coming externally, by me engaging in that frequency and meeting it at that level, I was amplifying the conflict, right? I was making the choice of engaging in it. And really the purpose of this is to not engage in the conflict, because ultimately, and I hate to skip ahead too far, but ultimately, the purpose of this is getting to a point of neutrality, right? Now, these are what we're working towards. It's important to also recognize we are all human. We are all going to make mistakes. It's part of our learning process in this. We are not meant to be perfect. And the ascension process is one of us learning and growing. And we can only do that by, maybe reacting just like I did. I mean, what I talked about in the blog is what actually happened and how I actually reacted. So it was me reacting that way, and then looking back at it, and then talking to a couple of people who have been witness to it, and talking with the person afterwards that it happened with. And then it all started coming together that, like, oh my gosh, I was reacting from an old wound and something that was super, super, super deep. And that old wound was actually a reflection of how I was viewing the masculine externally, but that's a reflection of how I view my own masculine. Because again, it's not either or. It's not, well, it's, an external source that is making me do something. That's giving up your sovereignty. That is giving away your power. So let me know. I'm going to pause again. Let me know if that makes sense and you want to continue, or if you have any other questions about that. Oh, good for you, Melissa. That's awesome. That is awesome. Yeah, it's so important to find that place of being able to be in neutrality. And what was interesting too, the other thing, what was really interesting about what I experienced, and I think that we can move into when we have had trauma and wounding, and even from a healed place, right? Sometimes the pendulum swings a little bit too far, and that's when we can move into the energy of being defensive, or a sense of righteousness. And yeah, it takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of time. But I think it's important to discuss this too, even though it's hard for me to discuss this. It's hard for me to discuss it not because I don't agree with it or I don't know it to be true. It's hard for me to discuss it because I can sense, because I understand where it comes from, because sometimes when we have been in a state of victimhood, and I'm not, well, we've been on the receiving end of abuse or betrayal or trauma or wounding, right? That for us to step out of that and to speak our truth and to speak up and to kind of stand our ground and to be okay, Karen, I saw your comment, so let me finish this and then I will talk about that. Let's see, what was I saying? For us to stand our ground and to be in a more empowered energy, but we have to be really, once we're past that initial point, then we start moving. At some point we start moving to, oh gosh, I can't get my words right. At some point we can recognize that initial step actually was still not in the energy of empowerment, because oftentimes it comes from a sense of, again, that the other hurt me and you will not do it again, right? And there's nothing wrong with that, but just stick with me on this. That was a really bad example. Let me see if I can come up with another example. This is where I run into trouble, right? Because like integrating the spiritual with the human, because the human me is seeing all of these potential situations where someone's been physically abused, someone's been sexually abused, right? Whatever the case may be. And it is, and under no circumstances do I want to diminish the importance of and the extreme courage that it takes to stand up for yourself in those situations and to get out of those situations and to protect yourself and to empower yourself in whatever form you can, right? So I'm going to say that as a bit of a qualifier, because for obvious reasons. That being said, once we're past the initial healing stage and we're no longer in a situation, this is really the key point. We're no longer in a situation where our safety is at risk, right? We're not in fight or flight anymore. We're not in survival mode anymore. That's not what we're talking about here. That is a totally different energetic and human experience, right? So when we've healed from a lot of those things. We've addressed them either psychologically, emotionally, energetically, hopefully all three, right? Physically even. There comes a point in time when we need to move out of the energy of being in that place of defensiveness, because and this is actually goes back to that, because what we're doing when we're being defensive is we are dropping back into the energy that we were in when we were not safe, right? When we were in fight or flight or freeze, when we were in survival mode, right? That's really one of the key points of this, is that it can be very easy, I think, to react from that when we're in a really stressful situation. And it's important for us, we've reached a point in our journey that it is super important for us to be very aware of the energy we are embodying when we are standing up for ourselves, right? And this kind of speaks to what Karen was saying. It's certainly, yes, you have to engage because it's a legal thing, but I think for that situation, your mindset, the thoughts you're thinking, the energy you're in, it's not necessarily that you're engaging in the conflict. There's a difference between speaking your truth and engaging in the conflict. There's an energetic difference. And that's really the whole gist of this, is someone who is in their sovereignty and is fully empowered is not going to ignore their personal boundaries. They're not going to allow any sort of behavior towards themselves. They're not going to engage in just every environment or situation, right? Because they understand how different situations and relationships or environments or energies influence their own energy, or can influence their energy, or I am not saying this very well. I'm so sorry. Let me try again. Someone who is fully empowered and in their sovereignty still has very strong boundaries, still very much speaks their truth, but they speak their truth from a place of it being simply their truth, not a place of trying to convince someone of anything. I hope that makes sense. So if you're in a legal situation, regardless of what the other is saying, if it's your truth, if it is the truth, if it is your experience, that's it. It doesn't mean it has to come through or out of your mouth or be held in your physical body in an energy of combativeness, right? That's where the conflict energy comes in. Okay. All right. I hope that makes sense. I was having a hard time saying that correctly. I'm glad you understood. Thanks for sticking with me through that. So let's see. We talked about, I've kind of jumped around here in my notes, but so the sovereignty versus defensiveness, a couple notes that I made. What does your frequency say in that situation about what you are aligning to? So that goes back to like the example of the legal thing, Karen. So is your frequency aligning to your truth and your sovereign empowered truth, or is it aligning to a combative situation? Is it aligning to the conflict that could be present is it aligning to the conflict, or is it aligning to the highest outcome for everyone involved? We talked about that the other day, right? And more than likely that comes through compromise. You can still speak your truth and compromise. and have the highest outcome for everyone involved. So that requires you to know, what does your sovereignty feel like? How does that differ from just standing up for yourself in a defensive mode? Like, what is the language you use mentally, internally, externally, expressively? What is the frequency you're in? And then also looking at the post-confrontation energy drain. Like, how did you feel afterwards? That will inform so much. How did you feel afterwards? Maybe not immediately afterwards, but yeah, you feel it when it happens. That's what I'm talking about. That's that frequency, right? That's the frequency. So it's great that you're recognizing that. That's huge. It's a matter of then making that mental note of, I can feel myself getting sucked back into it. Let me pull my energy back, right? So calling your energy back to you, taking a couple of deep breaths, right? And you don't have to do it in a way that it's visible to anyone. But if you just take a couple of deep breaths and focus on your breathing in that moment, call your energy back, release the conflict, and then start. And see if that doesn't help. And you might have to do it every time you go to say something, because this is like a new skill set. And that is a highly stressful situation too. So again, it's going to be more challenging under those situations. Okay, we talked about the collective responses. We talked about how engaging in conflict is represented throughout the media. We talked about defensiveness carried over from past stories or infractions. Oh, no, we didn't talk about that. So kind of going back to the collective, there's a lot of carryover from past storylines that just keep being recycled or regurgitated, and that just perpetuates that energy of conflict within the collective. And so opening ourselves to the awareness of that when we see it. I mean, there's a lot. You can use current politics as a prime example. I'm not going to talk about politics, but it's a prime example of how, and it doesn't matter about who we're talking about, which side, doesn't matter. That, I mean, politics is separation at its root. So you're not going to find unity in any side of politics because it's by definition separation. But you can see a lot of instances and examples of the defensiveness that gets carried over from past stories that end up charging then the current interactions and situations with this conflict energy. And this continues to demonize the masculine energies and to amplify the separation between the masculine and the feminine. Okay, so our responses are directly correlated to our relationship with our own inner masculine. And I say inner masculine because of the lower frequency, or I guess you could say, I don't want to say shadow aspects because that, won't utilize that, but I suppose lower frequency, lower frequency, I can't talk, lower frequency expression of the masculine is associated with conflict, right? So let's see. So our past traumas, again, we talked about this. Our past traumas can inform our response under stress and triggers. And then that leads to those heightened responses from a place of overcompensation, right? Like a sense of almost overconfidence. And it's an illusory confidence. It's not actually based in confidence. It's more based in like this sense of toxic hubris, justification and righteousness, and an illusion of empowerment. Because when empowerment comes from a place of like almost aggression and this kind of toxic masculine energy, it's false. I mean, that's not true empowerment. It's not true empowerment. And all of these things we've seen so much in the collective. We've seen, we get exposed to it again through media and social media, and there are so many examples of it, and many of us have had examples of it in our personal lives. And this is where we really need to redefine on a deep level how we see the masculine energy and what we associate it with, and therefore how we see our own inner masculine, divine masculine energy. Because the divine feminine, this is a time of the divine feminine rising, but for the divine feminine to be fully embodied and fully aligned, that can't happen without the divine masculine energy I saw Melissa's comment. Hang on just a second. So without having the divine masculine balanced as well, they work in unison together. Okay, so Melissa says, I just want to add that the body is wired to have certain physical responses to psychological, what is the word, aspects? I don't know what you mean. I mean, I know what you mean by the body is wired to have certain physical responses to... Can you elaborate on that so I make sure that I'm fully comprehending what you're saying, please? And maybe how that plays into what we're talking about here, just so I make sure I'm clear on that. Because I think I have an idea, but I don't want to respond without being certain that I'm on the same page. I don't know. Let's see. You're trying to stimulate your body response. Yeah, that's a very good point. So Melissa says, even if you were trying to stay balanced, your body will respond in a certain way until you can neutralize your nervous system. And that really speaks back to, you're absolutely right. And that really speaks back to, I think, well, a couple of things. Recognizing the conflict energy and how that feels in your body, so that you're able to recognize it. It's really important to have that baseline of knowing what being centered and balanced feels like, because that helps you, that helps you to then understand what it feels like when your body is dysregulated. And that is a very important point. And as we were talking about as we were talking about being grounded, right? The last time I think we had a live, we talked about the weightlessness of ascension. And so being grounded at the outset of this is really, really important. Absolutely, that played into my experience. Because of the situation, I was having a hard time being grounded. And that definitely plays into it. And it's very important to have a regulated nervous system. Yeah, because you will feel those adrenaline spikes, right? And the cortisol spikes and things like that in those stressful situations, and that among other hormones and things, but that will absolutely play into how we respond, how we react, and how we behave. And as well as, of course, the emotions that we're feeling at the time, the thoughts that are racing through our head, if it adds to anxiety, all those things. Absolutely. It's a very good point. The importance of, being regulated. Okay, so talking about, well, we kind of talked about this too, like, to continue to engage in thought lines and behavior patterns which keep us anchored in conflict and separation is to maintain the same energies which were utilized to suppress the feminine from the beginning. So that's really where I was going. Oh, no, you're fine, Melissa. No, you're doing fine. I appreciate the comment. That was an important point to talk about. So, I'm jumping around. My brain is jumping forward here. The divine feminine. So if we are moving on this path to elevate the divine feminine, we must address how we feel about our own inner masculine. And I think that it's something that we need to look at on a much deeper level, potentially, that I think that it may come through in subtle ways that will test our ability to stay regulated. As Melissa said, she says, training yourself to know your emotions and your responses help you stay balanced, even in conflict. Absolutely. Yeah. You said that better than I did. That's what I was trying to say. Yeah. But, what was I saying? I will get better at being able to go back and forth between the messages and the comments. Yeah, we have to be able to recognize our, those really deep beliefs about our own masculine, and how, because they're going to be reflected back to us. And that's what's important for us to recognize, and to zoom way out. A lot of ways we're seeing this in the collective is placing blame on groups of people, on masculine energies in the collective, for different things, or how, most importantly in this is how we are feeling about certain things and how we experience our life, right? There are things that are out of our control, but to focus on those and to turn our energy to those with that sense of almost aggressive, like, righteousness, is giving our power away. And it's something that the collective is, and this is what I was referring to begin with, that the collective is kind of wrestling with even more and more. And because of that, those of us that are continuing to move forward on this path and to grow and expand and really tune into the frequencies, to the frequency that we are in, and becoming very aware of that, the more that we can embody that state of neutrality and balance, the more that energy is then emanated out into the collective. And it's a matter of not trying to convince another person of what they should or shouldn't do, the frequency they should or shouldn't inhabit and emit, but by leading by example. And it's not necessarily an easy thing to do, but none of it is, right? And interestingly, I got a message, a channeled message came through earlier today from Jesus about this. And let me see. I thought you guys might want to hear it. Let me know. Y'all want to hear it? If you want to hear it, I'll play it because I recorded it as a voice note. So I'll pause just a second. I don't think I've transcribed it. Otherwise, I would read it to you. I can't remember. It's been a long day. Yes. Okay. All right. I'm going to play it. Let's see. Hopefully, you should be able to hear it. Sometimes when we find ourselves in judgment of others, and that may come through in a situation of conflict where we are witnessing an external conflict, and we are either judging the situation as a whole or judging one side of it. It is a reflection not necessarily of judgment that we hold against ourselves, but an inner story that we have replicated based in trauma, where we were judged or where we felt judged. And so when we see an external conflict in which what we perceive is happening is one side is judging the other, then it touches on our past experience with judgment, and we feel justified in joining in the conflict. And what we don't understand, because our view is clouded by this past perception, this past story of what we experienced, what we don't understand is that we are not soothing the conflict. We are not releasing the judgment from the object of that judgment. What we're doing is amplifying the energy of judgment by engaging in that conflict. Instead, there's an opportunity for us to enter into a state of neutrality and hold the energy of neutrality within that space, within that situation. To engage in judgment, especially from a sense of, not especially, but even in a sense of justification, of protection, is to amplify the energy of judgment. Instead, the opportunity is to remove gosh, this is challenging. The opportunity is to have compassion for both those in judgment and those making the judgment. And it is through being able to hold this compassion that the energy of love and compassion emanates forward into both aspects or sides of the conflict. And this is what provides the soothing. This is what provides the opening to equanimity and harmony. Okay. What do you guys think about that? That part about challenging was me chiming in there about recognizing how challenging that is to hold. Karen, it doesn't sound hard at all, right? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it is. I mean, it's challenging. It's super challenging. Oh, I did write it out. Oh my gosh, I couldn't remember. Again, I think it's coming up now because it is it's a skill set that we need to work towards, that we need to hone and refine. And as we become more and more sensitive and more aware, it's something that is going to be not only very useful, but very important for us to be able to recognize our frequencies in that way, but being able to oh my gosh, I lost my train of thought again. Recognize our frequency enough to being able to utilize it in that way, and to be able to spread that frequency of neutrality into those situations. But being able to recognize those, again, that underlying energy of conflict as things are changing and reshaping, and some things are being dismantled, destroyed. It's going to be really important for us to be able to be in that discerning energy, and knowing when we are being faced with that energy of conflict, especially when it is under the surface and it's not quite so obvious. Because I think we're going to see a lot of that, and we're going to see a lot of revealing around intention. And it'll be important for us to be able to really discern where the truth is in that intention. Because there will be a lot of conflict around those revelations. Of course, coming from the areas, the organizations, and the individuals who are being revealed for their true intentions. So it's going to be really important for us to be able to step outside of the immediate situation and really feel into it and understand what the underlying energy is of it, if that makes sense. Karen, yes, I will write that down. And I was actually I'll write it down. And I was going to do a video with that channeled message too. So that'll be out in the next couple of days, but I'll write it down and I'll send it to you. It sounds like a really hard journey. I don't know. I mean, I don't think it's going to be. Do you mean the journey of the next 6 months or so, Melissa? I don't, this is what we've been working towards, though. I don't know that it's going to be. I'm not going to say it's not going to be a hard journey, but I don't know that it's going to be any harder than the last 6 months. I think it depends on where we're coming from, too. Absolutely. Of course it does. It always does, right? But if we're focusing on, as you said, regulating our nervous system and being very discerning, like now, on what we're interacting with and using this time, it feels like it starts really amping up in, I guess August isn't that far away, but it feels like, I don't know why I keep feeling like 2 months away. So we may have a little bit of time, but really paying attention and being very being very discerning about energies and frequencies of the people, places, things, media that we're interacting with. Melissa said that's master level stuff. Every time I think I made it, you send me more to learn. Yeah, it is. It is master level stuff. It really is. And I think that's why we're being presented with this information to let's get ahead of the curve here, right? It's available to us. So let's really utilize it. I did make or channel the a light language sigil and activation to assist with this process. And so that's available. And I've got a coupon for a discount on it too for being in the workshop. So that's in the description box. I already put that there earlier. If you guys are interested in that. And what else was I gonna say? I want to show you the sigil while we're here, since it's us. I want to show you the sigil because I think it's super interesting. All right, now I'm not, okay, hang on, I gotta figure out where you are. Okay, there we go. Oops. Here's the sigil. What I found really interesting is I realized, let me pull it back so you can see the whole thing. I can't seem to get it straight. What I found really interesting was that it's almost the same upside down. Well, I mean, where is it? I'm looking at, I got two different things going here, so I can't tell what I'm looking at. Okay, so there are these little dotty things on this side that are not on this side, right? Over here we have more light language. But the overall, like if I turn it upside down, it's very balanced, right? It's very balanced. So I found that really interesting because I wasn't, I don't notice those kinds of things when I'm channeling it, but it's very, very balanced. So anyway, that's the sigil. It really is a really powerful light language activation. So if you're interested in that, again, that's in the description box. But that, I think, will be really helpful for us as we move through the next 6 months or so. And actually, that reminds me, since we're here and talking about this, I think there's a lot of activations that are older that are still very, very relevant, that I'm going to add to the my website, the new website, I mean, there'll be anything that was on like on Facebook or Instagram or YouTube, it'll be on there as a free offering, but keep an eye out for that library, because that might be a good place to just go and like review or check in with different activations to see if it feels relevant for you. But there are, I'm finding that some of this, well, really everything that was done over the last couple of years is exceptionally relevant right now. So I'll have those up probably by the weekend, so that it makes it easier than trying to like wade through YouTube or Instagram or something like that. And the free ones you can just download. And actually, if you create a username for my website, then you can create your own library, and everything that you either purchase or that that's free that you open or download will also be in the library. So it'll be all in one place for you. So there's that. And I'm going to do a formal announcement in the next day or two, but I am finishing up my Galactic Attunement Suite, and that will be, there's a meditation, there's 3 light language activations, there are journal prompts, and it also includes 3 one-on-one sessions to help you attune to your, or expand your relationship with your galactic guides and family. So I'm excited about that. That'll be out soon. And I'm going to stop talking so that you can, if you have any questions or anything. What's a bridge? Oh, the sigil's a bridge. Yeah, it does look like a bridge, doesn't it? It does. Yeah. Absolutely. And what's interesting too is it, like, if I turn it this way, it really looks like a bridge, doesn't it? Actually, this way, I thought it looked like waveform almost, like with really high amplitude. But yeah, interesting, huh? It's always fascinating to me how they turn out. Oh, thank you, Karen. Thank you. I've been working on it for a while. So I hope that it is helpful, and that, yeah, I'm excited about that. So do you guys have any questions about anything? Anything else you want to talk about? Thanks so much for being here, you guys. It means a lot to me. I kind of had the feeling as I was preparing that it was just going to be me here. And I was like, well, if it's just me, that's all right. But I'm so glad you guys are here. So I don't have a whole lot of confidence about my ability to do this discernment and adjustment in the moment. That's okay. It's a process, Karen. It's a process. Right now you have new awareness, right? So that's the very, very beginning. Yeah, hindsight is great. Exactly. But you can use that hindsight in looking at prior instances so that you can like glean information on what your signals were. And as you said, you're learning what it feels like when you start to get sucked into that conflict energy. This is practicing, right? You don't get on a bike and then all of a sudden you can ride and you never fall down. So this, again, it's a totally new skill set. So don't be hard on yourself, because that's not going to help you in the process of learning it, right? So we're not stepping out of judgment just to judge ourselves. Right? This is non-judgment. And it looks like a bridge in the schedule you made. Oh, interesting, Melissa. I think you're talking about both of those sigils. I don't remember what the one looked like that I made for you a couple of months ago. That's really cool. That's really, really cool. That's that balancing of the feminine and masculine. Let's see. Yeah, just let yourself. Oh, wow, that's cool, Melissa, that it would connect. That's really, really cool. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that might help, Karen. I think you need to allow yourself to be a newbie at this, right? Oh, thank you. Thank you. I got some sun. It helps. It helps. That might not be what you meant, though, Melissa, by glowing. It probably isn't. If that's not what you meant, I think it's the Jesus energy is still around. He's helping me greatly with this, because I have not. This has been challenging for me to talk about. Straight up, this has been challenging. Yeah. So Karen, the not feeling confident, allow yourself to be a newbie at it. I keep saying this. I know I'm repeating myself, so I'm sorry. It is a new skill set. This is a new tool. And I didn't realize that when I was first doing this, but as we're talking about it more, it's Jesus is bringing us more information. I didn't know he was going to show up. This is awesome. And I should have known this, because I thought about it earlier. So if I get emotional, I'm going to apologize up front, because his energy is so profound that it sometimes it just brings me to tears. Okay, let me focus, because it just gets it's really moving. So in allowing ourselves to be the rookie at this, right? To be the newbie. The jumping off point is pretty large. So don't jump. Allow yourself to take steps. You don't have to jump. You don't have to. And that was even in the blog, right? The blog said I didn't make we don't make an abrupt jump into it necessarily. Usually it is, I'm hearing a stepwise increment, movement into that conflict energy, right? Sometimes it moves a little bit faster than others, but allowing yourself to take the same stepwise approach in the process of learning this skill set and teaching yourself this skill set. And if you guys want to do another live or workshop on this, we can. If there are specific points you want to hone in on, we can definitely do that. Just let me know. I'm happy to do that. I'll call Jesus back in to help us. Having a whole lot of, having a whole lot of compassion for oneself is the biggest thing. Oh, the conflict situation doesn't allow me much space. Well, another thing for you to recognize is, Karen, though, that part of the reason, or that, yeah, it's your perception plays into it, but also part of the reason you're being presented with this is to look at it as an opportunity to practice. Yeah, I know. I know. I know. But it's your opportunity to practice these skills, to learn these skills. And in a real life situation, like in a situation that doesn't allow you to like step away from it, literally. It doesn't allow you much space, right? It's being put in your face because it is something for you to work on. I mean, same reason why it was put in my face. You know, I was in that situation. I mean, they're always, we are not the center of the universe. So there are more things that play into it, but it is very important practice. It is. But it goes beyond, yeah, exactly, Melissa. Let yourself be human as you learn. That's the whole thing. Like, it's not about being perfect in this. You need to let yourself fall off the bike. Truly. Because none of us are going to do this perfectly from the get-go. I don't know that we'll ever do it perfectly. Let's be real, right? About ascension and spiritual growth never ends. It never ends. And that's not a bad thing. It's just that there's always room for us to learn more about ourselves, to learn more about energy, to learn more about the world, to learn more about our relationships, all of those things. So, that's why I would call it a spiritual practice. It's kind of like yoga, it's a practice. You never are perfect. There are always going to be things that come up. There are always going to be bumps in the road, and sometimes there are bigger lessons than others, but yeah, that's what we're here for. The human experience is never about perfection. Never about perfection. That's something I have to remind myself of all the time. So I'm right there with you. Trust me. Ask my mentor. She's always like, Toby, doesn't have to be perfect. So, yeah. Snail, slide, or glide. Be a snail. That's right. Yeah. Snail, slide, or glide. Be a snail. I like that. That's awesome, Melissa. It's exactly right. You guys have any more questions? You think you might want to explore this again, or you want to see how it goes? Let me know what you think. Okay. Interested in more exploration? Okay. All right. Well, why don't we look at a week or two from now and see how it goes. And if you guys have like specific situations or instances where this came up, or maybe like internal resistance or some roadblocks or something that you're coming up against, send that to me. I know everybody here has my email, so if you happen to be watching this later and you're practicing, okay, Karen said yes more. Okay, so if you're practicing this, then if you run into any, like I said, roadblocks, resistance, haziness, something you just want more clarity on around it, send me an email, let me know, and I'll put that together, and then we'll plan on like 2 weeks from now, we'll talk about it again. And I'll gather up any other messages that I receive around it, and then we'll explore it a little bit deeper. But I think it'll be helpful to have like real life experiences from you guys, so that we can dive into it a little bit more specifically, if that makes sense. And if you don't necessarily have anything or have something that you want to share, that's fine too. We'll explore it, and we'll see where it goes, and I'll see what messages I get around it over the next couple of weeks. Okay, how does that sound? Allow for more fun in your lives. Yeah, that is really important. Melissa makes a good point. Allow for more fun. That is a really, really, really important part, because that is going to help to bring the balance too. Yeah, we are so serious sometimes, Melissa says. You're exactly right. Yep. So serious. Look at Melissa being the bridge. There. That's awesome. Yeah, it's really important. So I'm happy to do the further exploration, and at the same time, I think it is really important to follow that advice as well, to not overly focus or hyper fixate or focus on it. It's a matter of being aware but not fixating on it. Does that make sense? It is important to remember that I bring up these things for us to learn, and they can be helpful and are important. At the same time, we need to allow ourselves to live our lives too in a balanced way. And truly, New Earth is about bringing the spiritual into the human, to integrate that. I mean, there's a little bit more to it than that, but that's really, I think, the biggest aspect of it. Yeah, ruminating is not, there's reflection and then there's rumination. So it's also important to understand the difference, or learn the difference between the two. And you should be able to feel the difference in your body. Like reflection has has an openness to it, and a receptivity, and an acceptance to it. Rumination has I get a sense of hypervigilance to that energy. So it actually comes from a lack of trust in oneself. So when you have reflected on something and you understand, you reach a level of understanding, it might not be full understanding, but you reach a level of understanding and you have some acceptance with that, let it go. Don't go any further with it. Now, if it happens to come up for you in that reflective energy, but not in an energy of like distrust or in oneself and what you had already understood or intuited about it. I know you can second guess yourself. Yeah. And that's exactly where we need to draw, well, I don't want to say need to draw the line, but need to yeah, where you can start to have some mental discipline, truly. Like, but that can come too through the fun that Melissa is talking about, because if you're second guessing yourself and your brain is doing those things, then do something else that doesn't allow for that redirects your brain. Because some of that also speaks back to what Melissa was talking about the physical responses too, because that second guessing can come from a place of disempowerment, right? And that can be associated with different physiological responses or psychological responses that stem from past traumas. So, or conditioning. So breaking that cycle of, if you're catching yourself second guessing yourself, then shift, doing something different. I mean, that sounds very simplistic. I know. And I say this from a place of, I have to do this with myself too. So I totally get it. But there doesn't have to be, but there is the opportunity, when you recognize that you are second guessing yourself, to enlist that bit of mental discipline. And that can come through redirection, healthy redirection, going out to your garden patch, going and focusing on the hummingbirds. Something even that simple can be enough. If you do it for, does anybody know what the time frame is? Is it like 21 seconds? I want to say it's 21 seconds. There's a segment of time that can redirect the brain, and it allows it to switch off that kind of overanalyzation or even the anxiety. 21 seconds might not be long enough. I think it is, though. I'll have to look it up. But yeah, give that a try and see if that helps. These tools and everything, they will be helpful for us as we go forward, but it's not a matter of fixating on these to the point that we're not enjoying our lives. Yeah. All right, you guys have any more questions? You are so welcome. I hope it was helpful. You are so welcome. Thank you guys for being here. Seriously, it's so much better when y'all are here. It is super challenging to do a live when there's nobody there. So I appreciate you guys so very much. Melissa, Karen, and Karen, thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you, thank you. All right. Well, if you guys don't have any other questions, I am going to wrap this up. And let me know your thoughts. Karen, I will send you the written version of that message and the channeled message from Jesus. And you guys have a great night. Thank you again for being here. Thank you, thank you. See you soon.